Huh?
Should we be prompt?
Sure.
Okay. I'm just going to talk directly into this. So welcome, everybody. We are going to get started with our next presentation. Dana Skoy is going to be presenting for us. She has Mind-Body Pivot is her practice. She does ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. She does neurofeedback, Othmer method neurofeedback, and trauma-informed other methods. And today she's going to be talking to us about ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, which she's done much research on. So I'm sure it'll be a very informative presentation. Dana.
And if someone has a question, do you mind just handing that to people? Okay.
Know how much that works.
It's just for recording, it's not necessarily.
Yeah, it's not going to amplify the sound. Sorry. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today and share with you. Like Carrie said, my name is Dana Skoy. It rhymes with banana. I have been a licensed practitioner in Utah for a couple of years now. I did my graduate work on ketamine-assisted psychotherapy and its impact on trauma, and that was the beginning of a powerful journey for me. I work closely with Dr. Lisa Gold, who's developed methodology for preparing, facilitating, and integrating ketamine work and psychedelic work. And she and I taught our first cohort of therapists a year ago in February, which was really exciting. She incorporated ketamine into her practice in Arizona about 8 years ago, probably 9 years ago, and has had tremendous success incorporating ketamine-assisted psychotherapy with healing couples. I'm also an emotionally focused therapy couples trained clinician. And so that's attachment-based couples work. And so that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. I'm real excited to share with you today. I'm up here in front of you because I kind of speak with my body, and it helps me share information. I'm happy to answer any questions that I possibly can. But I want you to imagine this. You have a client who has been working and being successful, doing good therapy work, and yet there still are some significant obstacles to them being able to experience genuine healing that they're really looking for. There's the sticky parts where their nervous system is still becoming overwhelmed, and it's a real challenge to resolve that. And so I think all of us have clients that we can relate to that are experiencing that. And also what we're also noticing is the number of people that are still unresponsive to the typical mental health medications that are available. There's always a percentage of that population that either can't tolerate the symptoms or they don't work, which is really, really frustrating because we do have mental health crisis in the world, okay? So in a nutshell, we still have too much trauma, and we're still missing some tools that can help people get the relief that they need so they can have the lives that they're wanting. So the exciting thing is that we've come across the medication ketamine. And what's exciting is that by accident, we came upon this anesthetic that has an after effect of mental health benefits. And what they also found is that these benefits from the ketamine, when you're combining it with quality psychotherapy, not only provides the relief from depression and trauma that people are looking for, but it makes those results last longer, to be more deeply satisfying and reparative. That's exciting. So part of the story is ketamine is it's a medication that's been around since the 60s. It's actually a derivative of PCP. And PCP is a little too spicy to be able to use as an anesthetic. The after effects are just way too unmanageable and destabilizing. And for however it came to pass, they uncovered this molecule of ketamine. Now, ketamine is really, really great. It is fast acting. It has a short metabolic life in the body. And it's so safe that you can use it anywhere from infants to seniors. And it's so safe, it's listed on the World Health Organization's list of required medicines to have all over the world. So this is safe, which is really great, okay? And what happened is people were waking up after having this anesthetic and having these remarkable antidepressant experiences. They're like, wow, I was really struggling with suicidality or substance use disorder, such as alcoholism, or treatment resistant depression. And they were coming out and experiencing relief, which was an unexpected side effect. Very, very exciting. So they've been researching it since that time, over the last 20, 30 years, to try to hone in on why is this working? How is this helping? Now, if you were just to take ketamine itself, what they have found through the research is that the benefits of it last anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So if you just go in and have an infusion, the body can reset itself and you have some relief from these challenging symptoms. But they still don't last. And so we're using the research to try and understand more and more about the molecule. So cue the next slide, if you will. Okay, these are some of the exciting components about ketamine. And how it works, so look at it this way. Mental health depressions, medications, they work on usually I'm going to say this badly, so you can correct me, but the serotonergic, yes, pathways in the brain, okay? So those neurotransmitter pathways, okay. Ketamine works on the glutamate system, and glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter. You can think of it as like electricity. So it's bathing your brain in these excitatory neurotransmitters, lighting it up like a Christmas tree. Now, let's go back to trauma and how trauma impacts our body. I want you to remember that our bodies and our brains are the same thing. We talk about them like they're separate, but they're not. And our brain is a prediction-making machine. Its whole job is to take everything that you've experienced and try to make sense of what's happening right now, predict what's going to happen, and predict how much metabolic energy it's going to need to deal with your life. So it's doing a lot of work. And if you are in a chronic state of stress and hypervigilance over a long time, your brain pays attention to that and it will edit itself to maximize its ability to plan for the future. And so it will edit itself and then say, you know what? It's not good for me to relax. I need to be prepared. I need to be prepared to run, to be quiet, to fight, to do something. And I don't have the energy to relax because that requires safety. And if it knows safety's never coming, then it's loaded for bear nonstop, which is exhausting. And the brain needs to relearn how to understand safety, how to accept it, how to create it for itself. That's some of the work that we do in trauma work. And the great thing about the ketamine molecule is that it does several things. It floods the brain with this glutamate, which means that all the areas of the brain are not talking to each other. Parts of the brain that have had to be quiet because it's been needed to deal with challenging trauma. So now your brain has access to the prefrontal cortex, which is this magical part of the brain that gives you context and meaning and understanding. Another part of what it does, it also stimulates dendritic sprouting. So the dendrites are the little branches at the ends of the neurons, and these are the things that how your brain talks to itself everywhere. And ketamine stimulates dendritic sprouting. So you're creating new connections for your brain to sustain what it's seeing and understanding, and creating new opportunities for new neural pathways, both to process what's happening and to prepare. Another fun thing is that it changes the blood flow within the brain. And blood flow brings nutrients, which also supports the dendritic sprouting. And the last one I'm going to mention is muscle relaxation. So when we're upset, we get what I call the clench. We tighten up, we brace ourselves, and your body and your brain get used to that. Allowing your body to relax and let go, can be such a powerful experience with medication. People who may have never, ever felt that level of peace and relaxation and safety get to feel that. So we use the medicine to help our clients feel what we're trying to accomplish with trauma-informed therapies, with talking and reorganizing their experience, but that powerful additive of softening the body, softening the resistance, has incredible results that are well worth pursuing, if that's appropriate. Making sense so far? Okay, great.
I have just a quick clarifying question about relaxation.
Can I hand you the mic?
Yes. So just quick question about the relaxation.
Yes.
And one of your last comments, I don't remember exactly what you said, but it led me to the question of if we're leading them to this experience and they're having this experience through ketamine, is it also giving them a memory of what it feels like to physically and emotionally have that safety?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, that's such a good question. To reiterate, the doses that we use for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy are sub-anesthetic. So your client is awake and talking the whole time. So it's low doses, anywhere from 0.3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight to 0.5, slightly higher than that. You bring me to a really important part. Safety is a huge component. Current Utah law demands that all ketamine-assisted psychotherapy occur at a sub-anesthetic dose. The clients must be able to respond to any prompting at all times. If the sedation happens to go deeper than that, you're out of compliance. If you need to go deeper than that, which I'm just going to say is rare, but it must be done in either a hospital or an anesthesiologist clinic. So if you could imagine, when you're doing trauma therapy in your office, it goes in a particular way, and then adding the ketamine experience on top of that changes the whole experience. And I'm going to go into, it's very low dose, very low dose. Some of my slides further on are going to make some more sense about that too. That's an excellent question, thank you. Okay, yes, sub-anesthetic dose. Okay, next slide. Great. So this is kind of like what I just explained to you. Ketamine has shown to be effective without therapy. It's absolutely effective. People can get great benefit from it. Unfortunately, it is still temporary. We're adding the guided processing using the medication during our regular sessions, which furthers, it has enormous utility when you're talking with your client. And then the integration afterwards is going to take advantage of the work that you've done during your session. And I think what did we talk about? Okay. 72 hours of dendritic sprouting after the session. So after your client has gone through and you've had your discussions, you've had your breakthroughs, for 72 hours after, your client's brain is still integrating what's happening, and that's such a powerful opportunity to put into practice these new adaptations that you have co-created with your client. The work of quality ketamine-assisted psychotherapy involves 3 parts: powerful preparation, and for myself, the model that I follow with Dr. Gold is 5 to 10 hours of preparation of a detailed, deep mapping of your client's positive and negative adaptive patterns, and practicing what your new adaptive patterns that you're wanting to do, practicing that before you go into ketamine. Then you have a powerful ketamine session where you're exploring those themes and experiencing the correction of either building resourcing or exploring the challenging themes with the medication. And then afterwards, your client integrating what they worked on and discovered. Okay. I did forget. One of the other exciting elements that you witness with ketamine is when you're working with a trauma client in your office, it's not uncommon for them to become overwhelmed because of the emotional weight of what they are trying to process. And of course, regulation skills are one of the things that we try to teach our clients. However, sometimes it's too much. We need to pull back. We need to connect to resourcing and start over. Okay, and that's part of the trauma work, is pendulating into the pain, recovering, and then learning how to do that for themselves. What's exciting about ketamine is that in the medication, clients experience an objective distance from the really challenging theme. So if you're in your office without it, you can get flooded and it can be disappointing and really challenging. With the medicine, it's really interesting. It's the thing they're looking at is over there. It's not on your face. It's not like a wave crashing over you. And so when it's over there, it has a different look. It has a different feel. You can see different components of it in a safe, well-supported situation. It's real exciting to experience and to watch with your clients too. Does that make sense? Cool. So next slide. Great. So does anyone have any other questions about that? Okay, great. So ketamine isn't great for anyone. I mean, everyone, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. If you want a copy of my slides, I'll get you my email and I'll send them to you. Okay, so the people that we've found that have benefited the most, people with treatment-resistant depression. Treatment-resistant depression means you've tried multiple medications without success, okay? And we're just not getting traction with the therapies that you've been using. PTSD, of course, there's a huge contingent of ketamine practitioners that are working very closely with the military populations. Complex PTSD is a different form of PTSD that is just as pernicious and gets in the way. Definitely chronic suicidality, and then people are also working with other populations such as OCD, pain, addiction, eating disorders. I don't have specialized training to work with these unique populations, but they're people that are studying how we can get the most benefit for those people. Okay. Now, screening your clients to participate in ketamine is essential. Not everyone can participate in it. And if you want to go back, no, I don't think I do. So you can see cardiovascular issues. Ketamine increases your blood pressure. So people that have had, people who have problems with blood pressure, you're not a candidate for that. It can make things too spicy for you, and we don't want to go there. It'll put you at risk for having a stroke. People who have active psychosis, it's a no-no, because we're flooding your brain with glutamate, and you already have enough with that, and that's not what we want to have. When it comes to bipolarism, people are having success using ketamine for bipolar, except research is showing that it is only appropriate to use if you are in a depressive state. If you're a bipolar person, it must be in a depressive state. If you're experiencing mania, or if after your first, and I've had this happen with a client where it can stimulate mania in bipolarism. If you have someone who is in a depressive state, I would recommend doing the ketamine in the morning. They found that having it earlier in the day can help mitigate some of the excited, because you're filling your brain with all of this. It'll give them the rest of the day to be able to process, to be able to stay and maintain their circadian rhythm. You do not want to trigger people to go into mania at all. Okay, if you're having fun with liver disease, it's not for you, because ketamine is metabolized in the liver. And then interstitial cystitis, which means it's an inflammation of the bladder. And they found that people that are struggling with addiction, that are addicted to ketamine, chronic use over time, it will give you permanent interstitial cystitis, which is incredibly unfortunate. It is not reversible. Okay, pregnancy, it's a no-no. But if you're breastfeeding, it can be done if you pump for 48 hours afterwards for whatever residual ketamine is still left in the body. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the good news is that ketamine is super duper affordable. The bad news is that it's super duper affordable. And insurance companies, nobody's going to make money off of it because it's generic, it's super duper cheap, and unfortunately, that's how it is. So the methods that are being used for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, we'll start with IV. IV in a clinic, and the intramuscular injections. Those are both clinic-based distribution. Those are the highest expenses because you're paying for medical supervision. Insurance will not cover that expense. So that's still a challenge because it's financially put some people out of being able to take advantage of the benefits. There are some, what would you call it? I believe the University of Utah does have a clinic that is servicing people that are financially compromised, and in order to make that available. And there are other nonprofits that are working in that arena, but there's just not enough. So there are lozenges or troches that you can get compounded, and nasal sprays. The bioavailability of the lozenges and the nasal sprays is closer to around 30%. So even though you're taking a troche that has a certain number of milligrams in it, though you would probably hear it described as it's a 100 milligram troche, but only 27 to 30% of that is actually bioavailable. Does take a long time to dissolve under the tongue. They do taste like poo-poo. So unfortunately, that's the case. And there is some evidence to show that people who have gut problems, sometimes it can disrupt your gut biome. So that's something to take into consideration. The nasal spray has a slightly higher bioavailability, and that's also can be obtained through compounding pharmacies. And you can get those, there are physicians that are prescribing those over-the-counter medications that way. One of the downsides of that is that it does make addiction a little more available. And I had a conversation with an addiction physician that works in the VA. And something to keep in mind, part of the screening process, screening out for active substance use disorder, people who have been struggling with it, the compounded lozenges and nasal spray is something that you would want to take that in consideration. And in her experience, the people who were falling back into substance use were using the nasal spray for one, and number two, not getting ongoing therapeutic supports. So just keep that in mind. That's an important conversation to have. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I practice. I use a 2-hour gold standard, Lisa Gold, get it? There are other models. Some clinics give you a 45-minute session. Some people give you an hour-and-a-half session. We prefer using the full 2 hours, and for specific reasons. Before we start our session, we have a clear intention from the information we've been working on in our regular sessions. And when the client arrives, we need to find out about the day, how it's going, what has shown up around the intention, and that usually takes about 15 or 20 minutes of getting in the zone and identifying what we need to be processing. Then we introduce the medicine, and the process that I find really effective is a split dose. So that means 2 injections separated by anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how your client metabolizes the medication. And what we found is that stacked dose prolongs the amount of time that the client is in that dissociative state. It gives you more time to look at the problem. It can increase the amount of time that they're experiencing that relaxation. So it gives us more because, like I said in the beginning, ketamine is short, fast acting. After the first injection, it does start to fade by 20 minutes. So this is, boom, giving you a little bit longer boost. I just like having more time. And then depending on how they metabolize, we're spending the rest of the time both processing and then integrating the experience. So you get used to people like Robin, who has experience in this, coming into the session and 2 times. And I have to explain too, there are medical screenings that occur before we get into it. Blood pressure, we have oxygen monitoring, we have your blood ox, and then also your heart rate. Because of the hypertension effects from the medication, we need to be keeping an eye on that. So integration, the end of that. Okay, what's also important to keep in mind is setting. Session design is critical. And which also includes the music. The music that your client is listening to is incredibly important. It sets the tone for their experience. And I spent a great amount of time identifying what kinds of music is appropriate for your client to get them to feel they want to be able to feel, okay? So minor key music can make you really sad and it can stimulate it. And the ketamine amplifies all of your senses. And so how you feel emotionally with the music is another therapist in the room. You don't, however, I have been in sessions where the client needed hard rock music. It was very unusual. It was disrupting for me, but it was incredibly meaningful for a very specific reason for the client. It's fascinating. I had another client who couldn't tolerate music. Ocean waves was the solution. The ocean waves was part of their healing process. So it's incredibly important to curate 2 hours of music that resonates powerfully with your client and creates the kinds of supports that they need. I also have other clients who the words of the music were the therapist along with what they were talking about. So that's an exciting creative component of doing this work. Weighted blankets, aromatherapy, sound bowls, massage therapy. I've had client bring in iconography to hold during their session. The creativity is very, very satisfying to create with your client, and it's also wonderful to see just how meaningful all of those elements are to the client and help assist with their healing journey. I'm excited about session design, if you can't tell.
Do you have to have sound during the session?
You don't,
Like, what
but
if I want complete silence?
if you want complete science, you can have complete science. And that would be important to explore. If that's what you need, that's what you need. Yeah. There are no rules. And it would be powerful to experience both, without and with. Yeah. So, ketamine has its own reputation. People have been doing shenanigans with it for, just like they do with everything, right? But I just had that discussion about set and setting, right? Dendritic sprouting, what's happening? Going to a club and using it in a loud environment with who knows what's going on, that can be really challenging for your nervous system. There are some instances of, well, I've had clients come to me that went to a clinic that put some headphones on them and plugs in the IV, and there's probably about 4 or 5 different recliners in a single room, and everyone is going through their ketamine experience without therapy, and people have had very challenging and traumatizing ketamine events. Some people describe it as a K-hole, meaning they have so much medication and they've lost connection to their body, they don't feel safe, it's upsetting, and some of them lose consciousness and do things that they have no. My client was like tearing up money. He went into his wallet and was tearing up money and hearing people screaming in the next room. So unsupervised ketamine can be problematic just like any psychedelic, okay? So the object of the game is eliminate shenanigans. So protecting the clients, protecting therapists, and protecting the medication. That's my goal. Okay. 2.
It's all right. I need to cooperate.
Okay. So just as an aside, there's tension within the psychedelic community. Some people think it's a psychedelic, some people say it isn't. I'm not in that argument at all. I don't really care. But some people, there are still social mores about psychedelics, so they're still challenging to the public. It's had a challenging history, unfortunately, because of the 60s, even though psychedelic medicine has been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. In the modern world, we're trying to understand it and have a more adult conversation about it. And rightly so, because this is a powerful medicine. We want to be able to get the most out of it, okay? The challenge about the dissociative properties has led researchers to develop Spravato, which is 1/2 of the molecule of ketamine that doesn't have dissociative psychedelic components to it. So they're trying to get the benefit of the ketamine, but without the unnerving psychedelic side effects that it makes some people nervous. Like, okay, one of my heroes, Dr. Crystal, helped develop it. I have a complicated relationship with Spravato. Maybe it's wrong, but right now it's kind of like the seed oils of ketamine right now. It's like, I'm not sure if I like you. I do belong to the American Society of Ketamine Physicians, Practitioners, and Psychotherapists, and we just had our big conference, and Spravato had a big table there, and I'll admit I hissed at them, but that's okay. I do believe they have a part to play in this research to find a way to help people in a way that's covered by insurance, because Spravato is currently covered by insurance. It has a very complex protocol that you cannot conduct except in specific clinics. So there's some limitations to it, and maybe that's what my nervous system is reacting to. Yes. Oh.
I'm curious about the, and I don't know how to say it correctly, but Spravato?
Spravato.
Not having the dissociative component, would that be helpful for people that have DID and need to not dissociate?
That's a very good question. I think I don't know. I think it would depend. I don't know. None of the research work is being done with people with DID.
I was going to say, is it a contraindication, kind of like psychosis? Or...
That would be a good question for Kristen. None of the research is on DID. And it could be because of the difficulty with integration. It might end up being too traumatizing. Okay. They took the dissociative properties out so they could get covered by insurance. Because then it's not a psychedelic. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now, it's also practical, like it's fast, it's elegant. Psilocybin and MDMA medical trials and other ayahuasca, they require hours of support. I don't have the stamina to do that. Even though psilocybin and the MDMA trials are making tremendous progress and having great breakthroughs for people. But it's incredibly expensive. They've spent millions and millions of dollars to provide the support because in the MDMA trials, it's requiring, in order to get FDA consideration, which just got turned down, 2 therapists at a time. So if you could imagine 6 to 8 hours of 2 therapist support, that's an expense. Yeah. Still doing really good work, but we're just not where we need to be. I feel like we're on the cusp of getting the MDMA covered. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty of it. Here's hoping. Because the psilocybin and the MDMA, they have the powerful psychedelic properties and the dendritic sprouting like ketamine. Ketamine's legal everywhere, all over the world. And it's ideal for your client because they may be a little woozy for about 45 minutes after you're done with your session. I have you for 2 hours. You may be a little, don't have your sea legs for maybe another hour, but then you have the rest of your day. Not necessarily going to work, but you're not going to be losing. MDMA affects you for a much longer time. The other advantage is you don't have to stop taking any of your mental health medications because it's not working on those pathways. Nothing needs to stop. The only thing that needs to stop is You need to stop eating for about 4 to 6 hours before the session, and stop drinking because ketamine, it makes your kidneys cranky. And if you're like me and you have a teeny, teeny, teeny small bladder, I have to restrict liquids for quite a long time so that when you're in the middle of doing all this great work, it's like, oh, potty break. Oh, what a bummer. That was not my intention to disrupt my session. So restricting water, food, and then, what was I going to say? But afterwards, you just go back to your normal day and you're integrating. Yes?
May I circle back to the dissociative identity disorder?
Please.
And the dissociative, it's a different dissociation.
Yes.
I mean, the dissociative identity is like you don't want to go into this, you dissociate from your real identity because of fear or trauma, where the drug dissociates you from your physical body, and it dissociates you from your ego. So it's like your body becomes a shell. It's like
You're outside of yourself.
I feel like I'm inside myself, but my body is a husk, which it is, right? If we're spiritual beings having a human experience, our bodies are a husk. And that's the dissociation. So it's the same word, but I think it's two different things, entirely two different things.
I've heard the psychedelics is referred to as a dissolution of self.
Of ego, probably.
Yes, where
And
it's like,
it teaches one to come into their self, their innermost self, their spirit self, where it's safe, where they can find bliss, where they can have spiritual integration. That's why after just a few sessions of ketamine, many people are able to say, you know what, I don't need these antidepressants anymore because I know who I am.
Relief.
Right?
Yes.
This has always been an interesting conversation for me. So I've been a psychedelic facilitator for 20 years, and using primarily MDMA, psilocybin, and LSD. Now I'm a KAP therapist. I think we try to find words to put to these medicines. I think particularly with other psychedelics, it's not appropriate that we try to put them into a box because we want to understand them without experiencing them. And those that experience them, I think, are less likely to try to put them into the box of language, right?
It's ineffable.
Yeah, Timothy Leary said, he said LSD has a tendency to induce insanity in people that haven't taken it, right? So it's like the same kind of thing. But I think the reason that I say this is that I don't even, from my experience, I'm not even sure that dissociative is an appropriate word for ketamine.
I think you're right. It is a hard way to describe what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for a way to describe it, and so we try to get as close as we can to the bullseye, and that feels like dissociative, but my experience of it has never been as a dissociative. But we have trouble with not naming things.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for saying that. It is not uncommon to, I think this goes into the ethics. If you want to hit the next. Okay, so it's important to understand that there are no codified protocols for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. We're still new in that, and it would be very difficult. They're in the process of trying to figure out how to do it. I'm not sure we'll get there. But it's very important to educate the public that working with the medication is very different than typical therapy. Understanding how this works with the body and the mechanics of it is a skill that must be learned. And so helping clients be curious about what's the training development that your therapist has gone through to understand how to do this. It's not uncommon to go to a clinic and instead of having a therapist, they hire what are called handholders. So you're not alone in the therapist, in the clinic. You have someone there who may or may not be a mental health professional. Who knows what their training and development is. It may just be a lay person who does hold really great space. But when it comes to processing trauma, taking advantage of the opportunity that the medication creates to have a restorative, reparative experience with the medicine requires skill. And you can get out of your depth and people can be re-traumatized. And so I'm like, nope, we don't want to do that. So be aware and educate people. And then the other, I'm going to put Dr. Raquel Bennett, who's been a researcher for over 20 years in the KAP, in the KAP space. Love her to death. She has a free resource, recommended resource on the ethics of KAP practicing, both for medical providers and also therapists. Love it. I think it's great. And very clear about consent forms for your client. And people need to know too, with the medication, people need to understand that there's the possibility that their worldview might change because of it. Not uncommon. If you have a client who's been a lifelong atheist and has no spirituality whatsoever, they need to understand that that could come up during their session. They might have a connection to some spirituality. It might be different, and they need to be emotionally prepared for that change and know that that's a risk that you're taking. It might not, it might. But that's ethically discussing that before that happens. Likewise, too, forms of touch and stabilization during the session must be discussed ahead of time. Speaking to lawyers, signing those consent forms is more powerful when that consent form is not signed on the day of treatment or 15 minutes before the treatment. Just something to keep in mind. Videotaping, auditory taping of the sessions is also a powerful protection because perception is reality, and your client may come out of your session with a very different idea of what happened than what happened. So protect the therapist and protect the client. Next slide, please. Yes.
You have a question that you wanted me to address. I was told to come in here because you might have a question.
Oh, yes. So using ketamine with DID.
I have heard success stories. I've talked with therapists who have sent DID clients in at various stages of their process and had them have positive experiences. I don't know the research so well. You might know that even better than I do.
There isn't.
But it can be done. I have a personal client who is the step below DID, like she's aware of all her parts. And we've done a lot of ketamine work with her, and it's really cool. I mean, she works very actively with those parts in the ketamine sessions. The first person, I talked to another therapist who sent one of their clients with DID, and she said it was a great experience for the client that her parts got together and met for the first time.
Oh, wow.
So I think some really amazing things can happen. I just don't know the research to say how or when. Or
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably with some of the same modalities and techniques that we use. So
Okay. Thanks so much for sharing. Good. Okay. So getting it to the right people, knowing who's the right client, knowing the contraindications for it, the physical challenges, finding the right clinics that have the right kinds of supports is really important. Right medical provider, good training and development. If you want to hit the next slide. So this is me. Protect the client, protect the therapist, protect the medicine. You can, if you want, any questions, if you want, I have a free ebook that I created with Dr. Gold that has the basic components about ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. If you want to email me at dana@mindbodypivot.com, ask me any questions. I'm happy to send you this resource. So drlisagold.com, the therapist training is coming available, and the pre-sale for our book that we've been writing for the last couple of years, Ketamine Curious. And then here, Dr. Raquel Bennett, her group is called the KRIA Institute. Download the free resource there. She's got research articles, she has the ethics paper, and she also has lists of trainings that she personally recommends that are available. There's a lot of them. So now if there's any questions? Yes?
Do we need the mic for the
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Numinous. They're Numinous.
Yes.
They are, for those of you who may not be familiar, do provide ketamine in the 3 different ways, whether it's Spravato, intravenous, or intramuscular, and do work with insurance.
Yes.
So that's just. They also do a bunch of research. I was just pulling up to see if they're doing any research on DID, just because that was where the conversation led. But they're doing research on like ADHD and all kinds of other diagnoses and problems. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot to say too. One thing I didn't include was what happens when it goes south and you have a session with your client and it's not a match. They can't tolerate it. I've had people that had health problems. In those instances, we recommend doing transcranial magnetic stimulation. And another intervention that can be used with ketamine is a stellate ganglion block. So a stellate ganglion block is an injection with the ganglion nerves in the neck. There are several practitioners in the Valley that also do that. We learned from a clinician at the conference in Austin. He does ketamine intermingled with the stellate block to help the nervous system calm down, and with really, really great results. But you can just do the stellate ganglion block on its own. So, yes, you had a question?
Yes. I came in late. I'm sorry. Maybe you covered this already, but as an office administrator, I'm curious more about the therapeutic side, because you kind of touched upon it. Like there's some push and pull within the session. There's a lot of preparation. Do you just prepare like a few things that might come up with them, or maybe sometimes what you think will come up doesn't, and something completely different comes up? Like, I'm just curious about this therapeutic process and how that works.
Yeah, so what's incredibly important for any kind of this work is preparation, and then the session does its own thing.
Right.
Sometimes it goes where you want it to go, and sometimes it takes you to someplace else, which is why the preparation is really, really important. Clients need to have access and strengthen internal resourcing, and sometimes the way that they learn to regulate themselves, sometimes that can be the first session that they do with me, where they practice connecting to that resourcing so their body is memorizing a correction. So it becomes more salient, okay? The other thing too is because of the preparation, you understand how far to go. You're pendulating back and forth. And you know, because you know the history well, because you were aware of the previous traumas, you as a clinician are educated and prepared. And so you're not flying
anything to
blind
happen.
as much as you possibly can. Okay? And then you use the breath work is a really powerful tool to help calm the body, to redirect the focus, and help the body come back and get back to zero so that you can start talking again.
So the preparation starts way in advance.
Way in
of
advance.
The actual ketamine
I
sessions.
typically do anywhere from 5 to 10 hours of mapping and preparation and practice.
Good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you speak to integration?
Yes. Okay. Integration. So The integration process that we encourage clients to be doing could be whatever resonates. So journaling, massage therapy. It's really important that for the 72 hours after your session that you are deliberately engaging in activities that are strengthening these new adaptive patterns. If you can manage that. I mean, real life shows up, and what are you going to do? Life is lifing. Some clinicians prefer having a session the day after or 2 days after. It really just depends on the style of the clinician and what they find most valuable to their client. It really does depend on the need. Where am I going with this? It's part of the preparation process of designing the treatment arc and the treatment goals for the therapist. It can include activities that they are practicing. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I speak to an example?
Sure.
Okay, maybe clarification. So I do a lot of EMDR and IFS work for my clients with trauma and attachment wounds. So the experience and training that I've had with ketamine-assisted therapy is to use the integration as a way when that brain is in the hyperplastic state. It's almost like using parts language here. You're in your true self during that time, and all the parts are almost like on the periphery, and they're not intervening or interfering. And so you can usually, so when I've done integration before, I'm like enhancing or anchoring using EMDR, whatever stood out to them that was beneficial during their psychedelic experience. Like if it was love, or if it was like, oh, I saw that differently, or oh, this, I feel completely differently about this situation. Then I'm anchoring that and enhancing it, and so that it is more available in their nervous system and in their memory. And then as we go back into the trauma work with EMDR, that resource is really available to them. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's exactly the same, just amplified by the benefit of the medication. Incredibly powerful. I've had clients that have recorded their sessions and then I listened to it again with a different pair of eyes. And what's interesting is like the medicine and the music that they're listening to, it just gives them another layer of experiencing. And then again, putting into practice these new adaptations that are meant to soften the body, calm the mind, and get you where you want to be able to have the safety to explore and to both receive and give connection to people. So feel more whole and get the benefit of their community. So that's me. We're going to set up for the next. Thank you so much. Email me. Oh, and I have stickers. If anybody wants a sticker. To help you remember my website.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What? Here, guys. Stickers. Sticker. Cheat. Cheat. Have you guys read these books?
I saw this on Netflix.
Okay.
The How to Change Your Mind.
Okay.
He did a documentary.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Did I have that right?
Oh yeah, he's great. So the ketamine for
And then
depression,
this one,
I recommend. It's a little lighter read.
I didn't know he had also written